At my own graduation dinner, surrounded by family and friends, my parents leaned across the table and demanded that I give up my entire inheritance to my sister, as if my future was theirs to control. When I said no, my father picked up my diploma, snapped open a lighter, and murmured, "You don't deserve Grandpa's money." The paper shriveled and turned to ash while everyone watched. But I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I only smiled, rose from my seat, and walked out, because the real reason I stayed composed that night wasn't something they could burn, and they had no idea what was coming for them the next week. My name is Skylar Lawson, and for most of my life, I learned how to shrink myself at the dinner table. Not because I lacked thoughts or bravery, but because in my family, silence was the safest way to survive. My parents, Marcus and Elaine, adored the image of a flawless home in Del Mar, the kind you see on greeting cards. Vanessa, my younger sister, fit that picture without trying. She was their golden child, the one styled for photographs, the one they praised to strangers. I was the other daughter, the quiet one, the sensible one, the one they forgot to introduce unless someone specifically asked. From an early age, I understood my place. At 11, I hauled my robot project across the school gym alone because Dad had taken Vanessa to an after-school art event instead. At 15, I boarded an overnight bus to attend a research program while my parents escorted Vanessa to a fashion conference. And at 17, when I earned a statewide scholarship, I searched the auditorium for them and found only my grandfather standing quietly in the back, just as he always did. Grandpa Lawson was the only person who truly saw me. He understood how my mind worked, how I didn't need to be loud to matter. He taught me small but lasting lessons, how to replace a circuit, how to read a contract, how to protect my boundaries without raising my voice. Silence, he used to say, can be a strategy, not a surrender. Maybe that's why I rarely pushed back. When my mother brushed off my achievements with a simple nod, or when my father insisted Vanessa had the brighter future, I told myself it didn't matter. I convinced myself I didn't need their applause. But the truth was more tangled than that. There were nights in my college dorm when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what it would feel like if, just once, my parents were proud of me. Not proud of how quiet I was or how little trouble I caused, but proud of the person I was becoming. I thought graduation night might finally be that moment. I pictured Marcus shaking my hand, Elaine pulling me in for a photo, Vanessa teasing me the way siblings do when no one's watching. Instead, we sat at a glossy table beneath warm golden lights, and I felt that familiar distance settle in. Every question they asked about my job carried a subtle edge, as though they were waiting for me to confess I didn't deserve it. Vanessa spoke about her plans in broad, extravagant terms. New art studios, travel, future opportunities that somehow always involved my parents' money. Even so, I tried to ignore the knot tightening in my stomach. It was graduation. For one night, I wanted peace. I wanted something close enough to a family memory that I could hold on to it. But people show their true selves when they believe they own you. And that night, my parents showed me everything. The tension didn't erupt all at once. It gathered slowly, like storm clouds building behind polite conversation. I saw it in the way Marcus kept fiddling with his watch, in how Elaine's smile stiffened whenever someone congratulated me, and in the way Vanessa reclined in her chair as if she already owned the evening. I tried to stay present. I answered questions about my new software engineering job, kept my tone light, and sipped water to steady myself. Yet beneath it all, something felt wrong, a sense of anticipation, as though the three of them had practiced something before stepping into the restaurant. It started when the panna cotta was served. Marcus cleared his throat, the sound sharp enough to command the table. He reached into his leather bag, pulled out a brown folder, and slid it toward me. "Skylar," he said, "this is important." Elaine crossed her arms. Vanessa tucked a golden curl behind her ear, smiling like she already knew the ending of a story I hadn't even heard yet. I opened the folder just enough to glimpse the contents: financial statements, property information, something notarized. My pulse spiked. I knew exactly what this was about. Marcus never softened his approach, he never has. "Your grandfather trusted you," he said. "But you already have a steady job. Vanessa is just getting started. Sign the transfer so she can handle the inheritance." That's what family does. Family. Funny how that word only surfaced when they wanted something from me. I kept my tone calm. I'm not signing anything. The table fell completely silent. Vanessa blinked, clearly shocked that I'd actually said no. Elaine's mouth pressed into a thin, disapproving line. Marcus leaned closer, as if he thought he'd misheard. "Skylar," he said again, slower. "Don't make this hard. This is for the family." I said it again. No. It was the first time in 24 years I had ever refused them without adding an apology. Marcus's expression shifted, confusion, then annoyance, then something much darker. "You don't understand what's at stake," he said. But I did. For the first time, I understood everything perfectly. When Vanessa let out a quiet scoff, the last fragile thread inside me broke. She murmured, "Come on, Skylar. You weren't even close to Grandpa. Why would he leave you anything real?" My throat tightened, not with tears, but with clarity. They had never seen me as anything more than a placeholder. Someone to drain for emotional labor, silent obedience, and whatever else they needed. I leaned back, breathing evenly. "I'm not signing." That was when Marcus stood up. He pulled my diploma from his bag and snapped a lighter open. His eyes locked onto mine, defiant, cruel, confident he could still control me. "You don't deserve Grandpa's money," he said. The blue flame kissed the corner of the paper. The room gasped as it curled and blackened into ash. But inside me, something shifted, quiet, steady, irreversible. Not shattered. Awake. The fire should have terrified me. It should have hollowed me out, sent me spiraling the way Marcus expected. Instead, as my diploma burned away, everything inside me grew still, like a lake after the wind disappears. Voices murmured. Silverware clinked. Someone reached for a phone. Vanessa's smile wavered, confusion flashing across her face. Elaine didn't move at all. She simply watched me, waiting for me to break so she could label it an overreaction. But I didn't break. I watched the ashes drift onto the white tablecloth and felt strangely light. Years of being ignored, dismissed, managed like an inconvenience, all of it condensed into one undeniable truth. There was nothing left here worth holding on to. Marcus looked almost disappointed that I wasn't crying. "This is what happens when you forget who supports you," he said. Funny. I couldn't recall a single moment they ever had. I stood slowly and smoothed the hem of my dress. "Are you finished?" I asked. He blinked, caught off guard by my composure. Vanessa reached for me, as if to grab my wrist. "Skylar, don't be dramatic." I stepped back before she could touch me. Her hand froze in midair. Elaine finally spoke, her voice low and icy. "If you walk out now, you're choosing to tear this family apart." The irony nearly made me laugh. They had fractured this family long before I ever learned to spell my own name. I picked up my purse, folded my napkin neatly onto the table, and met each of their eyes, one at a time. "I'm not dividing anything," I said. "I'm just done pretending this is a family." Gasps traveled down the table, but I wasn't doing this for effect. I wasn't performing hurt. I was simply done shrinking myself. I turned and walked out of the restaurant, my heels clicking softly against the tile. No one followed. They were too shocked, too proud, or both. Outside, the night air wrapped around me, cool and damp, anchoring me. The street carried the faint scent of rain. Cars passed in a steady rhythm. For the first time all evening, I could breathe. I ordered a ride, slid into the back seat, and watched my reflection in the window. My eyes weren't red. My hands were steady. I looked like someone who had finally stopped trying to earn a love that was never coming. Aunt Riley's apartment in Hill Rest was warm and dim when I arrived. She'd left the door unlocked. A mug sat on the counter, chamomile tea bags beside the kettle. No questions. No sympathy. Just room to exist. Lying on her couch that night, I replayed everything, not with anger, but with understanding. Their cruelty hadn't appeared out of nowhere. It was rehearsed, familiar, something they'd perfected over time. And still, I hadn't shattered. I'd smiled. I'd turned and walked away. Because somewhere deep inside, I understood what they didn't. What they put on display that night wasn't the conclusion. It was the last misstep, the one that made the truth impossible to conceal. And next week, inside a lawyer's office, they would finally realize just how badly they had underestimated me. The morning after the dinner, sunlight slipped through Aunt Riley's curtains, gentle and warm, as if unaware that my entire life had shifted overnight. I thought I'd wake up rattled, angry, maybe even broken-hearted. Instead, I felt a calm I didn't recognize, steady, grounded, sharp, one that brought everything into focus. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Vanessa's messages arrived first, brief and smug, soaked in entitlement. "Thanks for the room, sis. I'm painting it blush pink. You don't mind, right? It's not like you ever loved that house anyway. And maybe try being supportive for once." I stared at the screen until the words went hazy, not because of tears, but clarity. She truly believed the house already belonged to her. Then came Marcus's email, stretching 3 pages long. Beneath the blame, ungrateful, selfish, dramatic, sat one clear demand. Give up the inheritance. Fix the damage you caused. Be the daughter we expect. I shut the email before reaching the end. Finally, Elaine called. Not to apologize. Not to check if I was okay. She jumped straight into damage control, as if the dinner had been a negotiation that had gone slightly off track. "Your father didn't mean it," she said, her voice thin and unsteady. "You know how he gets when he's under pressure. Just sign it, Skylar. It's not worth ripping the family apart." But it was already torn. I had simply stopped pretending the fractures were decorative veins in marble. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't remind her they'd destroyed the greatest thing I'd ever built. I just hung up, then shut my phone off completely, because only one conversation mattered now. I opened my laptop and sent a single email to Mr. Dalton. "It's time." His reply came within minutes. "Next week. Santa Monica office. They'll all be informed." I closed the laptop, sank back into Aunt Riley's couch, and let out a long breath. For the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting. I was deciding. The week moved by quietly, an eerie contrast to the storm gathering beneath it. At work, I buried myself in code reviews and project plans, retreating into the one part of my life that still made sense. In the evenings, I stayed with Aunt Riley, sipping tea, helping with small chores, watching old films. She never pushed me to talk. She simply stayed beside me, a quiet anchor in a world that had tipped off balance. "Your grandfather knew this would happen," she said one night. "He trusted you for a reason." I nodded, even as the weight of that trust settled heavily on my chest. When the day finally arrived, I drove to Santa Monica early. The sky was a flawless blue, almost taunting. I parked outside the law office, straightened my blazer, and walked in. The lobby carried a faint scent of polished wood and citrus cleaner. Mr. Dalton greeted me with a grave nod. "They're on their way," he said. "Are you ready?" "I've been ready for years," I answered. We stepped into the conference room together, long table, towering windows, leather chairs too rigid to invite comfort. In the center rested a neat stack of documents, the weight of an entire legacy sealed inside crisp white pages. 5 minutes later, the door opened. Marcus entered first, jaw clenched, eyes sharp with outrage. Elaine came in behind them, her face tight, as if she were already preparing for humiliation. Vanessa trailed after her, phone in hand, sunglasses resting on her head like she was on her way to brunch rather than a law office. The moment she noticed me, she stopped cold. "Seriously," she muttered. "You really think this will change anything?" I said nothing. They took the seats across from me. The space between us felt deliberate, clean, symbolic. Mr. Dalton began without any small talk. As outlined in the official will of Mr. Lawson, the room went still. Even the air seemed to pause. He continued, reading line after line, specifics, dates, signatures, witness statements. Then he reached the part none of them were prepared for. The entire estate, including all properties, investments, and business holdings, shall be transferred exclusively to his granddaughter, Skylar Lawson. Elaine's mouth fell open. Vanessa stared, stunned. Marcus lunged forward. "That's impossible," he barked. He promised me. No, Mr. Dalton replied evenly. He didn't. Vanessa slammed her palm on the table. I already put a deposit down on a studio space. You can't just. I met her gaze, calm and unflinching. It isn't yours to spend. She shook her head. You don't even like the house. You don't care about Grandpa's company. She had no idea how deeply I cared. How many summers I'd spent there in silence, watching the business falter under bad leadership. How many late nights Grandpa and I sat together, reviewing plans and ideas he never lived long enough to bring to life. Marcus tried once more, leaning on the authority he'd used against me my whole life. You're too young for this. You'll destroy everything. Vanessa is entitled, I said softly, my words cutting sharper than a shout. And you're the one who taught her that. The quiet that followed was heavy and uncomfortable, exposing everything. Then Mr. Dalton picked up a remote. There's one more thing. A video appeared on the screen. Grandpa sat in his study, frail, but with the same sharp eyes. If you're watching this, he said, then Skylar kept her promise to stay silent until the truth could speak for itself. Elaine covered her mouth. Marcus stared, unmoving. Vanessa whispered. No. I watched you diminish her achievements, Grandpa continued. I watched you praise one child while overlooking another. I watched Skylar grow strong in ways you never bothered to notice. The tension in the room was electric. No one breathed. And I am leaving her everything, he said, because strength deserves trust, not exploitation. The screen went dark. The silence swelled, thick and final. I stood, resting my hands lightly on the table. This isn't revenge, I said. It's justice. And this, I gestured to the paperwork, is me choosing myself. Marcus's face collapsed, not in regret, but in the realization that his control was gone. Elaine looked down, tears pooling. Vanessa hid her face, shaking as her future rewrote itself before her eyes. I took the documents Mr. Dalton passed to me, slipped them into my folder, and stepped away from the table. You burned my diploma, I said to Marcus. But you didn't burn my future. No one answered. No one dared. I walked out into the bright California sun, and for the first time in my life, the light felt warm. 3 months later, the world felt different. Quieter, lighter, mine. I moved into a small apartment on the southern edge of San Jose, close enough to bike or walk to the tech district each morning. It wasn't big, but it felt safe in a way my childhood home never had. On my desk sat a single framed photo, Grandpa and me in the backyard, both of us laughing at something only we remembered. Work changed too. I stepped into a leadership role at the company, rebuilding it from the inside out. No politics. No nepotism. Just capability. The shift was visible. People breathed easier. Employees who once looked worn down now met me with steady, hopeful eyes. I never heard from my family again. Not a call. Not an email. Not even a message from Vanessa, who once couldn't go an hour without speaking. And oddly enough, I didn't miss them. What I felt instead was peace, solid, honest, earned. At night, I stood on my balcony, watching the city lights shimmer like distant stars. For once, my thoughts were still. I didn't question what I'd done wrong or what needed fixing. I wasn't shrinking myself to make others comfortable. I had finally stepped into a life where I didn't need permission to exist. Sometimes I think back to that night, the flames, the silence, the way I left without looking back. But now, standing in the San Jose breeze, I understand what Grandpa had been trying to teach me all along. Strength isn't loud. It's choosing yourself even when no one applauds. My family lost their power over me the moment I stopped seeking their approval. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more true family dramas. You're not alone.